And they can do anything because their GM is so savvy. That's kind of the Eagles as well. They can do anything, and they proved it last year with Carson Wentz. And I'm in that camp. I said, you can't take on that dead money. You can't take on that cap hit. I take that, I'll raise my hand. I said, they can't do that. Oh, they did it, and they made the playoffs.
You got your Mac and Mac guys here for a Thursday St. Patty's Day edition of Birds 365. McMullen and McDonald going to chop it up with you for the next 2 hours. It's a typical St. Patrick's Day for me because things are going in several different directions. When we get ready to do Birds 365 here, John and I hop on just before the show's about to start. I just mentioned that this was a little bit of a late start for him. I got up at my usual 6:15, and I've been writing down notes and preparing for the last hour and a half. And then McMullen tells me 2 minutes before the show's supposed to start, oh, Howie got his extension. I said, where the hell did you see that? I've been looking at Eagles stuff all morning. He said Kempsky just put it up within the last 2 or 3 minutes.
It was about an hour ago. I think.
Was it an hour ago? I was on Philly Voice.
Well, he put it on Twitter. I don't know if he has it up on the site yet, but. And he might, but I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it was always expected. There were whispers, and Jimmy was able to lock it down, and good for him. Good job by Jimmy Kempsky. Really back at the combine, people were telling me, yeah, don't worry about it. And they gave him a 3-year extension, which aligns with Nick Sirianni, got a 4-year deal. So that was always, you remember when we talked about it when it first came up, I said, typically you align it with the head coach. And there was never going to be any concern, as there was never going to be a lame duck season where Howie Roseman was GMing for his job, if that's even a thing. People, say that. But,
here's my. I'm sorry to interrupt, but maybe I'm just not a math whiz. Sirianni got a 4-year deal,
and Howie had 1 year left from Doug,
right?
From the original extension, from not his, but he's been here for a long time. And now he gets a 3-year deal. So Nick's got 3 years left on his deal. Howie's got 3 years left on his deal. So now they align, and they're together, which is the way you should do it. The only question for the Howie Roseman haters, this is the only GM in history that's not his history, but the only current GM, I'd have to go back a very long time, that has hired 3 different head coaches.
Yeah.
So people kind of say, you typically don't have this kind of shelf life in that job in the NFL. We always talk about shelf life and why is this guy? Look, I'm on record. I've gotten killed for it. This is a very good general manager. Very good. I've called him top 5. I got excoriated for that on social media, as you can imagine. At worst, he's top 10. At worst, if you want to argue. There's a lot of recency bias, and guys who've had a good season, you'll say he's better. But this guy's been around a long time. And I already see it with the young GMs who get hired. Man, there's a lot of growing pains. They make a lot of mistakes from a technical standpoint. And I get the biggest thing from a fan perspective is always going to be player evaluation. And understandably so. I get it. I mean, that's the biggest part of the job. But it's still only a small part of a big job. And, the cap stuff is a perfect example. I mean, guys make a lot of cap mistakes. And there are certain guys, and Mickey Loomis is another one like this. We go through this every year, Jody, where people say, because the Saints have been in that all-in sort of mind frame for a very long time. At the end of Drew Brees' career, for a decade, and Sean Payton, they tried to win every year. So there was a lot of immediacy trying to get players to win for that particular year. And that hurts you on the cap, and you got to push things around. You got to manipulate things. And everybody says, well, the Saints can't do anything. The Saints can't do anything. Oh, they're in on Deshaun Watson, and they can do anything because their GM is so savvy. That's kind of the Eagles as well. They can do anything, and they proved it last year with Carson Wentz. And I'm in that camp. I said, you can't take on that dead money. You can't take on that cap hit. I take that, I'll raise my hand. I said, they can't do that. Oh, they did it, and they made the playoffs. That's a big part of this job. And I know people don't really care about it, and I get that part of it, but he's a very good general manager. I get the frustration of people, but he's a very good general manager. And if you were to fire him and bring in a new general manager, I'll just say this: you'd have a lot of growing pains. A lot of growing pains.
Cap management is an underrated skill of a general manager. You and I see that exactly the same. But again, it's St. Patrick's Day, and I promise you, I have not had a green beer yet. I may have several after this show is over and done with, but I have not. But I'm struggling with math here this morning. Howie Roseman was on the last year of his contract, starting with the new year yesterday. As a matter of fact, they had a year to go. If he signed the 3-year extension, that means he's under contract for 4 more years. Sirianni is under contract for 3 more years. And you just said you like to keep those two guys aligned, but my math tells me how he's extended a year further. When we say 3-year extension, does that mean we're not counting this year, which he was already under contract for? Is it actually
I don't have the details. Jimmy reported it was a 3-year extension. Typically you want to align head coaches and general managers. Maybe Nick got a 5-year deal. My guess is they're aligned. Now, if they're under contract through 2024, 2025, I'm just texting people now. My guess is they're aligned. So typically that's what you do. I don't see why the Eagles would, give Howie an extra year than Nick. So my guess, and it's just a guess, is that they're aligned. So whether that's through 2024 through 2025, that's my guess, is that they're on the same time frame.
Gotcha, but we don't know for sure, is what you're saying. Fair enough. I just trying to do my own math here, and it wasn't exactly adding up. All right. So Howie Roseman is in front of his desk, cracking down as we speak, trying to figure out more moves for the Eagles to make. It became official yesterday that Hassan Reddick is a Philadelphia Eagles 3-year, $45 million deal was signed, sealed, and delivered. His former running mate in Arizona, Chandler Jones, signed yesterday for more money, 3 years, 51. So certainly more than Hassan got at 3 and 45. Who do you think got the better deal, Hassan Reddick and or Chandler Jones?
Well, you got to see the mechanics of the deal, and when they get filed, same thing. But average annual value, and again, these are all contracts put out by agents, and they're going to spin them to be the best possible, for their particular client. My guess is Chandler got the better deal because of his name and there's a lot of things that go into it, and he was expected to be the number one guy, and Von Miller got a deal that it's not going to look nearly as good when the truth of that contract comes out. But I got to tell you, Jody, I didn't see Von Miller going to Buffalo. That was a big surprise to me, and it kind of tells you Buffalo's going all in. But it's kind of hard to speculate on the surface. I assume he got the best deal, Chandler Jones, from a 2-year perspective, which is kind of all that matters in free agency. which is understandable. And I think, people, we just talked about it with Howie at the beginning of the show. I think when the Reddick numbers are filed, and that should be very soon, and they might be, I got to look at that as well. People are going to be very happy with that deal. People are going to be very happy with that deal because if it was spun as 3 years, 45, it's going to look much better on paper for the Eagles.
Well, they usually do. There, your point on the early reporting of these usually come from agents who are going to make it look as good as possible for the player is very much on point. That's the way the NFL has been running for years. The agents release the numbers first, and then you get them from the teams afterward. You go, oh, okay, I see what's actually embedded
Exactly.
in these numbers here. So we got,
and that's everybody. That's 99% of contracts, by the way, not just Hassan Reddick, but it's kind of what I said with Howie. Howie's usually a little bit better than other people, and there are people in the conversation. Mickey Loomis is one of them, but he's generally at the top of that list, and you have to give Jake Rosenberg a lot of credit as well. I'll give him a shout out.
Fair enough. I'm very interested to see those numbers because you and I debated before free agency kicked in. You said you thought that Chandler Jones would be a better signing for the Eagles. I said Hassan Reddick because he's younger, plain and simple. That's the difference. Is Chandler Jones a more specific defensive end, not someone that you're going to have to get creative with and find different ways to use and make him a productive player in your defense? Yeah, of course he is, but I'll lean on the side of youth that Hassan Reddick's certainly already where he is and is less likely to have a drop-off in production in Chandler Jones. You might see a drop-off in Jones this upcoming year with Vegas. Vegas surely hopes that's not the case since they just signed him, but at age 32, at some point, even the best of the best pass rushers start to drop off, and I think Chandler Jones is right on the precipice of that. And the one thing I kind of laughed at when I was reading the story on the signing of Jones to Vegas, and immediately thereafter, the Raiders traded Yannick Ngakoue to the Indianapolis Colts. J Mac, you and I weren't partners. I might have been having you on my show at the time when Yannick Ngakoue was the most desired player in Philadelphia. Everybody and his brother wanted the Eagles to trade for Yannick Ngakoue when he was a member of the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is now a couple of years ago. What has Yannick Ngakoue done since he left Jacksonville? Next to nothing would be my answer.
Well, one, I got to defend myself. Rob Motti was on the show. I said Rob said it first, and then I said, I agreed when there were these strange whispers at the end of free agency that the Eagles might try to make a big splash with Chandler Jones. I said he doesn't seem like an Eagles type signing for me because of his age, 32. But you never know with these splashy things. And if they could get some kind of deal, you never say never, some kind of discount. But there were these weird whisperings of the Eagles and Chandler Jones. They always go. That's sort of the Eagles mentality. You want to go for that young player off his rookie deal, typically. And when you don't, you typically want a 1 year short-term deal, and Chandler Jones was always going to get more than that. So I just wanted to clear up the Chandler Jones part of the equation. As far as Yannick Ngakoue, look, the guy, this is one of my concerns. One, and I'm not trying because I think Hassan Reddick is a better player than Yannick Ngakoue. He can rush the passer. I'm talking about Yannick Ngakoue. Can't do anything else. Can't do anything else. He might be one of 2 or 3 worst run support defensive ends in the NFL. And what do I always say about March, Jody? Nobody gives a bleep about the run game in March from an offensive perspective or a defensive perspective. And I go, oh, let's get Ngakoue. It's been 4 teams and 4. I can't even keep up with it. But Minnesota, Rick Spielman, part of his sort of downfall, he's another great cap guy, but sort of his downfall was when players would get injured, he would panic. We know it best in Philadelphia with Sam Bradford. So I think that year it was Daniil Hunter was out with his neck injury, and he panicked and he traded for Yannick Ngakoue. He could rush the passer, terrible at everything else. So then they trade him to Baltimore. Now Baltimore's a really good organization. Typically, they make a lot of good decisions. They figure out very quickly he can rush the passer, can't do anything else. Then he goes out to Las Vegas. The first couple games, people are raving about this guy because he's opposite Max Crosby. They got these two great pass rushers, and all of a sudden the season wears on, and they realize, oh, this guy's a liability. And now he's in Indianapolis. He can't. People don't care about the running game until they see it on the field, and they go, this guy's a stinking liability. And Indianapolis, which has a reputation, even though they traded for Carson Wentz, they have a reputation to be a smart organization. And they're going to find out the same thing, Jody. People are in love with pass rushers. Same with quarterbacks. It's great when guys can do certain things, but if you're not well-rounded, it's going to show up eventually.
One-trick pony. That's what Yannick Ngakoue was. And as everyone was clamoring for his services here in Philadelphia, I was a guy who continued to say, thank you, no. Not only am I not going to give up what is being reported on his price tag to be for Jacksonville, I don't want the guy, period. I, like you, noticed and knew that he was absolutely a liability with run defense. And even though I'm a sack guy, you're a guy who will be okay with pressures. If you get your fair number of sacks, you get a whole bunch of pressures, you're okay with Johnny Mac. No, I need sacks. I need guys to finish. That's
one of the finish. He can. The one thing Yannick, he's a perfect example of a big sack guy who's, he's going to be a big sack guy, but he's not going to. He's going to be a liability. It's the best way, because I'm not going to say he doesn't offer some things, because not everybody can rush the passer like he can, and it's very intoxicating. But if you can't do anything else, I mean, it's gonna hurt eventually. And it's hurt in so many different cities now. How many did I name? I can't even.
He went through the fast four. He's on his fourth team in less than 4 years.
This is 5. So it's Jacksonville, Minnesota, Baltimore, Las Vegas,
and Indy will be his 5th team, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're a good player, you're not bouncing around to that many teams. Same thing I say with Carson Wentz. I mean, if you're good, you're not bouncing around to 3 teams in 3 years. I mean, bottom line.
Now, I kind of predicted that Ngakoue's sacks were going to drop off, and they have done just that. So even though he was a guy who could get home in Jacksonville, like I said, it's been 3 stops, and he hasn't put up top flight sack numbers in any of the other ones, and I don't expect him to do it in Indianapolis either. We shall see. So yes, yesterday was the official day that Hassan Reddick became a Philadelphia Eagle, but no other outside entries to the world of Philadelphia football. Kind of a slow day. Howie Roseman got nothing done, but not that many teams around the league did. We mentioned Chandler Jones going to the Raiders was certainly the biggest play. No other really major signings, just some more drama in the Deshaun Watson conversation as a 4th team was added. He actually took it on the road, went home to Atlanta. The Falcons in the mix. And I'll continue to ask it. And it's just me being an observer from outside. I'm not suggesting that what are the Eagles doing? How are the Eagles screwing this up? They have to get Deshaun Watson. Jalen Hurts isn't good enough. No, none of that is in play here. My only question is, why no Eagles? Why aren't they at least in this conversation? Are you telling me that they can't merit a We talked all season, John, after the Eagles had accumulated all their draft capital to be a player in something like this. And the Atlanta Falcons are getting a meeting, and the Cleveland Browns are getting a meeting. Is it just the fact that Deshaun Watson not only said, yeah, I'd prefer not to go to Philadelphia, but I'm not going to Philadelphia? The Eagles aren't good enough to take on my services. That's the only thing that's bothering me. If they get him, they get him. If they don't, they don't. I'll be okay with it either way. I'll go back to war with Jalen Hurts. But the fact that other teams, if he's meeting with a top flight team that's got a chance to go to the Super Bowl next year, all right, I'll understand that. Okay, that's his preference. But he's meeting with all these teams that aren't contenders, aren't anywhere near on the level of the Eagles as of right now. And the Eagles can't even get a meeting. Yeah, I want to know the answer as to why. I'm sorry.
And maybe you'll get it. I have, I think, somewhat of an answer, but I can't say it. I'll tell it to you off the air. And then I'll just say that it has nothing to do with roster construction or players or anything like that. Well, it does have to do with a player, but it doesn't have to do with playoff implications or anything of that nature, which is kind of what I speculated. There's always other stuff. Now I think he wants to play in the South. He's an Atlanta kid. He's a Georgia kid. Not Atlanta, but Gainesville, Georgia. So that kind of explains the Falcons a little bit. In New Orleans, that's a place a lot of people want to be in. Just because it's a fun, and especially younger people, it's fun, it's a cool city, blah, blah, blah. We know Miami and the original. So I think he wants to be in the South. But I do think, and I've said that pretty consistently, it's got nothing to do with him looking at film and say, oh, the Eagles have terrible players. It's got nothing to do with that. Never believed that for a second. And this is a weird and wild story. This is a weird story. You got people insisting that Deshaun Watson is coming to Philadelphia. I shut it down yesterday on Twitter. I shut it down. I said, look, this is either the best example of discipline subterfuge in NFL history. Or if Howie's going to pop up like whack-a-mole, or Deshaun's going to and say, gotcha. I mean, these teams are meeting with Deshaun Watson, with owners and head coaches and the biggest profile GMs and the biggest profile people in the organizations, 4 different teams. They've given trade proposals. If the Eagles have been able to keep this quiet, I will be the first. I told everybody, you can freeze and cold take me, send the tweet off, do whatever you want to do. Because this will be the greatest subterfuge in NFL history if the Eagles are in on Deshaun Watson. That's how I'm framing it at this point.
I see what you're saying. And again, let me just get my position out there. If they don't get Deshaun Watson, I'm not pitching a fit. I'm not going. Howie Roseman blew this. Deshaun Watson's an idiot for not coming. All I want to know is why. I want an explanation, because there's a narrative to be driven that would make the Eagles a major contender for a guy like Deshaun Watson. And as you just correctly pointed out, they're not even in the picture. They're one of the other teams in the NFL have no use for Deshaun Watson. Guess what? The Green Bay Packers aren't getting a meeting with Deshaun Watson either. Oh, I can understand why not. They kind of got this Rodgers guy that they just gave $50 million plus to per year. So, of course, they're out. The Eagles are out, and they've got Jalen Hurts. I just want some answers. I'm not complaining about it. I'm not saying, oh, my God, Howie Roseman is screwing this up. Oh, my God, Deshaun Watson is screwing us by not even looking at it. All I want is some answers.
I'm going to text you a potential answer. Okay. You just can't talk about it yet.
Right, this is to be determined. Okay, I got your drift.
And we got to get to Joe. So I'll text you that during the break, and we'll bring our buddy Joe Santoliquito on from Philly Boys and Bleeding Green Nation. It's Bleeding Green Nation Day. We're going to have BLG as well.
So Joe Santoliquito of Philly Boys and Bleeding Green Nation is next. Our buddy BLG, Bernally Gouton, a little bit later. We'll be here for another hour and change on Birds 365.